That's meeting to order. We're going to start with the invocation. Ashley Drake Mertz is here tonight with us from Grace First Presbyterian. Thank you so much. Could you lead us in prayer? Sorry. Once we get everything ready for you.
Thank you. Let us pray. Holy Creator, in this season of resurrection, we give you thanks for showing us moments of new life, renewal, and restoration in the midst of death. Send your Spirit to guide these leaders before us to make the best decisions for all citizens of Weatherford. Give us each patience, wisdom, and courage as we live through unfamiliar and often scary times. We give you thanks and ask your continued protection of all those who continue to serve the people of Weatherford and Parker County, those in the grocery stores, those in medical care facilities, those serving in elected positions and their support staff, those who respond first when help is needed, and all those whom you know who I have not named. Sustain us through all our difficult days so that we may rejoice in serving you in all we do. In the name of one holy God we pray. Amen.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
Before we call the meeting to order, I'm going to read a brief statement. In accordance with the order of the Office of the Governor of Texas issued on March the 16th of 2020, the City of Weatherford may conduct this meeting by telephone conference in order to advance the public health goal of limiting face-to-face meetings, also referred to as social distancing, to slow the spread of COVID-19. It is the city's goal to allow everyone to fully engage in today's meeting while maintaining some order and unity. This is a new process, and we kindly request your patience. We ask that all attendees participating in today's meeting remotely please adhere to the following requests. Mute all electronic devices when not speaking as to minimize audio interference. When voting, the chair will call for the members in attendance to cast their electronic vote first, then request remote participants to provide a verbal vote when called upon individually by name if not in attendance. For public comments on agenda or non-agenda items, comments from speakers in attendance will be taken first. If you join the meeting virtually, you will have a raised hand button. Please push the button if you're requesting to speak. When your name is announced to speak, your microphone will be unmuted by staff. Please state your name and address for the record, and you will be given 3 minutes to speak. At this time, we'd like to call the meeting to order and announce we do have a quorum present with all council members currently on the dais. Item 3 on the agenda is pledges of allegiance to the United States and Texas flags, and our Mayor Pro Tem is going to lead us this evening.
Please join me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. Item 4 on the agenda, items of community interest. Mr. Hotop.
Yeah, so 2 things to report tonight. Of course, we hear a lot going on about the COVID and the current situation that our city, our country, and our nation is in right now, and just 2 kind of bright spots. One was really a matter of opportunity and exists with our Weatherford Police Department. So you may have seen this in the paper, but you know, we closed down the lobby to the Weatherford Police Department for normal citizen interaction there. And so what we realized is there was an opportunity there through a lot of the donations we were receiving to start up or host a food pantry there. And so because of the hours of operation and being a secure environment and people being there 24 hours a day, that really became an opportunity that we had for a lot of the donations that we're receiving for folks to come in and have a secure drop-off location, but then also have a donation where people can receive donations in a safe manner, because there is, we've got a couple of local organizations with Manna and the Center of Hope that are really being taxed in there during this time period, and so this just became another avenue and a good opportunity for us to give back and continue to build a strong community. So that was one thing. The other thing is we hear a lot about everyone sheltering in place, continue to advise everyone to stay at home, and so this concept of drive-by birthdays is something that's continued to evolve, and so we've become a part of that. So with our men and women of the Weatherford Fire Department and Police Department, when available and upon request, then we're participating in those, hopefully to bring a little bit of cheer to some young little boys and girls for their birthday parties. And so it's kind of a neat concept and something that you see a lot, that's been evolving a little bit more, and we are participating in that. So just a couple of neat things that are going on right now.
Special thanks to Chief Arnold and Chief Peacock for that. I've been told that if you're going to be 50 this year, you're not eligible for the drive-by fire truck deal, so just for whatever it's worth. Item 5 on the agenda is approval of the minutes. 5A is consider approval of the minutes of the City Council meeting held March 24th of 2020. Council, is there any comments or corrections? Hearing none, we'll call for a motion at this time on 5A.
Motion to approve. Second.
Motion by Councilman Cleveland, second by Mayor Pro Tem Wilder. Any discussion before we call for a vote? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote at this time. Yea or nay, please. Minutes passed 4-0. Item 6 on the agenda, consent agenda items. We have 6A, 6B, and 6C as listed on the agenda. Council, can we entertain these as a group, or do we need to split anything off? Good. Okay, great. Any discussion on any of these items? Seeing none, we'll call for a motion on consent agenda. Jeff Robinson with a motion for approval. Mayor Pro Tem Wilder with a second. Any discussion before we call for a vote on consent items? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote at this time. Indicate yea or nay, please. 6A, B, and C pass 4-0. Item 7 on the agenda, public hearings. 7A, hold a public hearing and consider approval of ordinance number 02020-21 for a conditional use permit for an auto dealer at 1009 Fort Worth Highway, City of Weatherford, Parker County, Texas, CUP 2020-0001. Good evening, Mr. Kettner.
Yes. Mayor and council, you have in your packet the complete staff report that went before the Planning and Zoning Commission at their April 8th meeting, where they voted unanimously 6-0 to recommend approval of a conditional use permit for the auto dealership located at 1009 Fort Worth Highway with the listed conditions included in the staff report. And this application is, in the images that you have in your report, show the locations of improvements that they were required to do, which was adding landscaping, limiting the number hours of operation, the vehicles. This will be a specialized installation of aftermarket parts as well, included with their project for vehicles, trucks, boats, and utility task vehicles. So the applicants are here if you have any questions for them, and staff's here to answer any questions you might have. This is a public hearing as well.
We'll go to the public hearing, open that in just a moment. I know that it's required. Staff, are there any, council, are there any questions for staff before we open the public hearing and allow the applicant to come on?
I do have a question. It says new and used vehicles. What type of new vehicles?
I will defer those questions to the applicant. He would probably be better to answer the details of their operations. And
Great.
I'll let him introduce.
Sir, if you hold on just a moment, let me get the public hearing open. Any other questions for Mr. Kettner before we open the hearing? All right, at this time, we'll have a public hearing on item 7A that will be open at this time. Like I said, we do have a blue card by Mr. Ross Ramsey. Come on up, sir. I apologize for that. We've got a process we've got to follow. When you get settled up here, if we can have your full name and your address, and then we'll give you 3 minutes to speak, sir.
Okay. My name is Ross Ramsey. My resident address is 154 Oakwood Creek Lane, Weatherford, Texas. And I am the owner of RP Elite Motors, just as he mentioned, at 1009 Fort Worth Highway. Would just like to emphasize, I know 180 has a lot of auto dealers, and I know a lot of them are not that impressive, so to speak. I've been working a long time to get to this level of business. I'm 32 years old, and I own 2 old companies right here in Weatherford. Me and my wife are residents of Weatherford. This is going to be our lifetime home for our future kids. And I would like to keep RP Elite. I would like to start this business in Weatherford. This business is not your average business. This is high-end assets, high-end inventory. The boat up there is a boat that we have now. That's a 2018 Mystic 44. Motors in this boat alone are $250,000. They're twin-turbo 1350s. We'll be asking $600,000 for that unit. Now, I know that doesn't really, I guess, jive with what's on 180. It's a lot of lower-end stuff. But I think this is a great opportunity for the city of Weatherford and ourselves. I believe to sell $600,000 boats, $100,000 pickups, the lot has to represent that. I would like to tell you up front, that lot is not up to my standards. We're going to reseal the concrete. There's going to be no weeds. We're repainting everything there, basically. It's going to look top-notch. We're going to do bi-monthly events, such as car shows or whatnot. Me and my wife would like to donate those proceeds to a charity. And I just think it'd be good for the city of Weatherford, and we're excited, and we hope we can get this passed. So I'll answer any questions you have.
Any questions for Mr. Ramsey? We do appreciate you coming forward. Are there any questions for the applicant?
I do. Eddie just said new vehicles. What type of new vehicles?
Really, the new vehicles, we're working with Jack Powell Ford in Mineral Wells. I'm trying to get in with them to where we could do RP Edition pickups out of Jack Powell. I do have a connection there, and I'm trying to work that. We will be doing a lot of new UTVs. These UTVs will have, I don't know what you know about UTVs, but they're going to have, you know, your crazy tires, your crazy wheels, and you know, aftermarket suspension. And, you know, we'll be selling some of those UTVs almost around $60,000 on some of them. So everything's exotic. There will be occasional Lamborghini, Ferrari, Mercedes that we put on this lot, and it's a high-end exotic lot.
Okay.
Other questions for Mr. Ramsey? We do thank you for being here,
Yeah,
sir.
thank
Thank you
you.
so much. Council, anybody from we do not have anybody remotely that's requesting to speak, Mr. Garvin?
No, sir.
Okay, anybody else from the audience? Don't have any other cards? Okay, at this time, we'll close the public hearing on item 7A. Council discussion or further questions for staff?
I have a few questions, kind of historical, so I know that's going to kind of fall in a rough spot for Caleb. We as a group have had a couple of projects similar to this come up on the corridor, and we've had a lot of conversations about what that corridor looks like, being it's our entry point into downtown. What type, not necessarily what type of businesses, but what each of those businesses brings. And in the past, we've denied a couple of things similar to this. My cars, we denied the changeover of Roger Williams space for detailing and bringing in cars from the freeway. And we've tried to get away from some of these problems caused from specific uses. So I have concern about what we've historically approved in relations to this type of use. But more specifically, I have problems with some of the recommendations, and you can clarify with me. So in the past, some of the things that we have tried to avoid were large amounts of inventory staying in front of a building overnight. But the recommendation of this is for the back to be for employees and for no inventory to be in the back. And so as we're cleaning up the north main corridor, we're having conversations about too much showroom stuff on the road front. And then as we're getting out here, now we're talking about this particular property, we're going the other way, we're saying put it out in the front, we don't want anything in the back. So clarity on why we're thinking that this particular property would be better suited for all the displays to be in the front as opposed to what we've historically done.
At this location, when we were talking about when we looked at it, we looked at the existing canopies that were already in place, and I believe the applicant is intending to limit the total number of vehicles on it. It won't have nearly as many vehicles. I don't want to misspeak, but I believe it was less than 20 vehicles total will be on it, which will look pretty spacious compared to some of the others. But that's the only thing we had to go by was that. The back area, because of the residential that is back behind the area, some of the conditions we did put on it is that they needed to add some landscaping to the front to dress it up, as well as them agreeing to do, they're painting the facility as well and adding landscaping to the back, and all accessories that they repair have to be stored inside or screened inside. And so those were some of the recommendations that we put on it. But yeah, I was, unfortunately, I wasn't privy to all of the past history on all of these, but we did discuss this with the applicants as they brought their project forward, so.
When it comes to the idea of 20 cars possibly being out there, there's nothing in this permit that stipulates quantity of cars or storage capacity or anything, is there?
That's right. We didn't put a specific number. That could be added as a condition if you would like to do that, or a limitation on that number. And I believe that's our understanding as well, is they intend to only have one boat at a time. And then they'll only, I think, 2 to 4 of the 20 vehicles are UTVs. Is that, am I recalling correctly? Don't want to misspoke for the applicant there, but we can further limit it because it is a conditional use permit. You do have the ability to do that if you so choose.
Is there anything, if the conditional use permit was approved, is there anything to prevent it turning into a car lot that had self-tote $1,500 cars parked out there if that was the direction they chose to go?
At this point, no, the only limitation would be on the number of vehicles. And so with that being said, I would highly recommend you add that as a condition, and I think that would be amenable to the applicant to limit it. But
What would that condition look like? How would you,
I would condition it with the total number of vehicles,
Just
no more
total
than 15 or 20 or whatever number you believe is most fitting for that location.
Good questions, Mr. Cleveland. Any others? Or we can come back to you? Those are
yeah,
good,
we can
though.
come back to me.
Those are good.
Yeah, I've got a couple things. It said new and used, and the arrangement that he can possibly have with the Ford dealer in Mineral Wells, I mean, maybe that can happen, but I don't know that that means that this is a new car dealership. It's still going to be their vehicle, because he's not going to be a Ford dealer, because we already have one. And so my exact concerns was, is this going to turn into a used car lot? Now, I hear what he has to say. I like UTVs. I've got a couple. And I'm a boat guy too. And I can see what he is envisioning being okay, but the fact that we don't want wheel displays out on the street and those types of things for certain, and some kind of guarantee that this doesn't turn into a used car lot. And so I'm not really sure, you know, the space out there is fairly small. We've probably got used car dealers on Fort Worth Highway and on South Main that probably don't have more than 20 cars or 15 cars. So I don't want to be against, you know, what he's telling us necessarily, but I do want to be careful that this doesn't turn into another used car lot. If it's high-end, really nice stuff with a nice building, unique type things, I think it could be a pretty interesting thing to have there on Fort Worth Highway. So,
Mayor Trotem, thoughts, comments?
Yes, thoughts and comments. I've been here probably with Jeff the longest, so I've been through a lot of retreats. I've been through a lot of planning when the general plan came through. And one thing that in those retreats, we made a plan that we wanted to change the corridor, so to speak, in the downtown to a different vision, that we didn't want, you know, car lots, we didn't want certain things. And I believe we need to stick to that plan, as hard as it may be, and as much as I want to do this. I think the vision was sound when we made the vision. I think the general plan went along with that vision. I think the transportation plan went along with that vision. And we have stuck to that vision in the past by denying several other people this same opportunity. And I think it behooves us to continue to stick with the vision until, at such time a retreat, we change the vision. We have set a plan for staff. We have set a plan to enact, and we followed that plan for now however long I've been on. We've denied other people. I think ethically and morally, I believe we have to stick with the plan we envisioned for our downtown and for our corridor.
I've just been fortunate enough to be at one retreat, and I do remember that conversation specifically. Mayor Pro Tem mentioned at the retreat, and that was mentioned that historically that the council has been in favor of protecting that corridor. And as you can see, even since my planning and zoning days and brief time with you guys here, that corridor is changing, it's transforming. And so I like the concept, I don't like the spot where it's going. But that's a personal preference. But what's important to me is I'm sticking to the plan that council's had for years and that I bought into at the last retreat. From a formality standpoint, a conditional use permit can be transferred from owner to owner if there's not a cease for an extended period of time in operations, correct?
That's correct, or it can be tied directly to the person.
And so, this permit, as it reads now, gives an extended period of time to do improvements and other things. It's not really clear. It's not specific enough. So as presented today, my comfort level's not there. Independent of that, based on the goals that this council has set, based on the general plan, which was a citizens-based plan, this doesn't align for me. So any other discussion? Questions, Mr. Cleveland?
Well, the other thing is we spent a good bit of money on a Fort Worth Highway Vision Plan a few years back, and I know that I put that as one of my priorities to look at and to continue on at this coming retreat in the next month or so.
And that could be, and that was something, it falls under another item, which would be future agenda items, but it's along this topic of what we could do to really clarify, because we don't want our citizens trying to relive the history and understand where we've been and where we're going and not have any clue when they're looking at a piece of property of what we intend. So I think we could probably have some time to, for instance, our corridor plan clearly establishes 3 zones. It establishes downtown to Santa Fe, I can't remember what the next road is, and then extends all the way out to city limits. So it'd be very easy for us to clarify this better for individuals by saying, all right, in zone 1, these are the specific things we are trying to avoid on a property. Zone 2, it's further out of town, there's a little more leeway. Zone 3 is all the way out there, butting up against Hudson Oaks. There might be some ability to extend out a different set of rules for that area. And then it would be very clear for a customer, instead of coming in having to ask, hoping there would be some clarity up front.
Yeah, and I'm a good case too, just maybe a re-education or just run through that plan again, or maybe even for our planning and zoning too, just to make sure that everybody understands that goal is intact and supported by council and has been for several years, the best that I could realize looking back at retreat notes. So good thoughts, good comments, and any others? Okay. Council, you have no other questions for staff? We'd be happy to entertain action on this if that's your pleasure at this point.
Make a motion to deny.
I second that motion.
Motion on the floor for denial by Kevin Cleveland. There's a second for denial by the Mayor Pro Tem. Any discussion on item 7A before we call for a vote? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote on 7A at this time. Indicate yea or nay. A yea is a denial and a yea. Okay, correct. We are 4-0 for denial of item 7A. Item 8 on the agenda is regular agenda items. 8A is consider request for preliminary plat approval for 10 residential lots at 1401 and 1355 North Lake Drive in the extraterritorial jurisdiction of the City of Weatherford, Parker County, Texas, SBD 2020-0006. Welcome back, sir.
Yes. Mayor and Council, you have before you in your packets this request for a 10-lot subdivision in the ETJ. This went before the Planning and Zoning Commission at their April 8th meeting and voted unanimously for this project. This included combining, along with staff's recommendation, combining lot 7 and 8, which is shown on the screen at this time, which they have provided at this time of combining lot 7 and 8, which meets all the conditions that have been placed on this preliminary plat. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer any.
Item 8A, any questions on this for Mr. Kettner? I believe staff is recommending approval and P&Z approves 6-0.
That is correct.
Okay. Entertaining action at this time, if that's your pleasure, council, on 8A. Motion for approval by the Mayor Pro Tem, and a second by Jeff Robinson. Any discussion before we call for a vote on 8A? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote at this time. Please indicate yea or nay. 8A passes 4-0. 8B, consider request for final plat approval for the one-lot Victorin addition described as 2.253 acres out of the George Staggs Survey, abstract 1196, City of Weatherford, Parker County, Texas, SBD 2020-0022. Welcome back.
Yes. You have before you the final plat for this one-lot Victron addition. This did go before the Planning Commission, and staff recommendation was for approval with the conditions indicated in the staff report. Any questions?
Any question for Mr. Kettner? We do have a blue card from a remote individual. If you'd like to unmute us, Mr. Remington Wheat, sir, are you online with us?
Yes, sir, I'm here.
Well, thank you for joining us tonight and for your patience. We do have a blue card for you to speak. Explains that you're here on behalf of Bannister Engineering. So if we can have your name and address, and then you'll have 3 minutes to speak or be available to answer council questions.
Okay. My name is Remington Weed. I'm with Bannister Engineering, 240 North Mitchell Road, Mansfield, Texas. And I'm here to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions today for Mr. Wheat, council? I'm hearing no, sir. I hate that we've wasted your time, but we appreciate you being available tonight for questions.
No problem. Thank you.
Have a good evening. Thank you. Council, any further discussion or questions on 8B? Hearing none, be happy to entertain a motion at this time. Motion on the floor for approval by Jeff Robinson, second by Mayor Pro Tem Wilder. Any discussion before we call for a vote on 8B? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote at this time. Please indicate yea or nay. 8B passes 4-0. 8C, consider request for final plat approval for the one-lot Blue Beacon addition, which is 9.59 acres on Banks Drive and described as being Lot 1. Gasserage addition. Shoot, I practiced that earlier and still messed it up. And a tract of land out of the Maria Antonio Mesa Survey, abstract 856, City of Weatherford, Parker County, Texas, SBD 2020-0023. Mr. Kettner.
Yes. You have before you this one-lot Blue Beacon addition, and this went before the Planning Commission at their April 8th, 2020 meeting, and it was voted unanimously to recommend approval of the plat, subject to the conditions indicated in the staff report that you have in this entirety in your packets. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to answer any.
We do have a remote person that signed up. Any questions for Mr. Kettner before we go remote? Council? Hearing none, Mr. Carter. Mr. Johnson, David, are you there?
I am.
Okay. We could have your name and address, sir, and I believe you're with Blue Beacon, correct?
That is correct.
If we can have your name and
David
address.
Johnson.
Yes, sir, go ahead.
Sure. David Johnson, 500 Graves Boulevard with Blue Beacon Truck Washes. This will be the location for a new truck wash to replace the current one that we have in town there. Construction is to begin on it very soon. We have a contractor lined up, and I'm here to answer any other questions you might have.
Mr. Johnson, before we open the floor for questions, could we have your city and state, please?
Sure. Salina, Kansas.
Great. All righty. Council, any questions for Mr. Johnson? I did have one question. You said the construction should start soon or quickly. Can you be a little bit more specific?
Sure. We have hired a contractor, and we are currently working with the city to get our site permit to get started with the public improvement part, which would be the reconstruction of Banks Drive and then drainage improvements around our site.
Okay.
Once we get that done, then we'll be able to get our building permit and start going vertical with the building.
Okay. Thank you for that clarification, Mr. Johnson. Any other questions?
Sure.
We thank you for being here tonight with us all the way from Salina, Kansas, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, 8C is on the floor. If it's your pleasure, we can entertain a motion at this time.
Motion to approve with 5 listed recommendations, and then number 6, reading, the property lines shown on the east side of Banks Drive do not reflect the right-of-way dedicated in document 201933008, and needs to be resolved to the discrepancies to the satisfaction of staff. And then the 7th recommendation will be the drainage easement containing the public 5-foot by 2-foot reinforced concrete box is required to be 20 foot as opposed to 15 foot.
Councilman Cleveland made a motion for approval with, as stated. Mayor Pro Tem, does your second correlate?
Absolutely.
Okay, thank you so much. Any discussion on 8C before we call for a vote? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote at this time on 8C. Indicate yea or nay, please. 8C passes 4-0. 8D is considered request for final plat approval for 4 lots at 1713 East Bankhead Drive in the city of Weatherford, Parker County, Texas, SBD 2020-0014. Welcome back.
Yes. Mayor and council, you have before you the request for a final plat for a 4-lot subdivision. This went before the Planning Commission at their April 8th, 2020, and voted unanimously to deny the final plat based on the incomplete right-of-way and center lines, which made the required right-of-way designation undeterminable by the Planning Commission. However, we did receive the plat showing the right-of-way, and we've included it in the presentation here. And the applicant has agreed to meet all the conditions that were outlined in the staff report as well. And so it does meet all of those requirements at this time if you chose to recommend approval of this request. And I'm here if you have any questions.
So just for the record, again, the applicant has agreed to all conditions that you're presenting as staff.
That is correct.
Okay, correct.
And the
And that-
applicant is here tonight.
And that's changed since planning and zoning.
That is correct.
Okay, great. Council, any questions on this or discussion?
Yeah, so with that being stated, the initial take on this was staff could not recommend approval due to some of those items. Does staff now have the ability to recommend approval?
Yes, we do. Yes.
Good question. Thank you. Any
So-
other, Mayor Pro Tem, I'm sorry.
So the right-of-way, everything is conditioned to staff approving every condition that is listed, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes. As you can see on the original plat, the right-of-way wasn't determined, and we didn't have that until the day before the Planning Commission meeting, and so the Planning Commission didn't have that, and that's where they come up with their recommendation.
Absolutely.
One last, and I think I probably know the answer, but we don't have a recommendation from the P&Z, and I take it that had these issues been resolved, that you feel like we would have gotten one from the P&Z.
Yes.
I typically watch the P&Z remotely, and I did not see this one, so I didn't know exactly what their reasons for not recommending, but you feel certain that with this, we would have a recommendation from P&Z.
Yes, as it was presented to them by staff, staff didn't have that information until before the meeting, and we did receive that information. They did not have that to review before them, and so he has presented that to staff and meets all the conditions that were listed, and staff feels that we could give a recommendation of approval meeting all those conditions.
Wonderful. Good comment and question, Mr. Robbins. Anything else? 8D, you'll entertain a motion if that's your pleasure, council.
Make a motion to approve with the recommendations. Let's see, there's 7 total.
Motion on the floor by Kevin Cleveland for motion for approval.
Conditions.
Conditions, I'm sorry.
With the 7 conditions, Mr. Robinson, you concur with your second,
Yeah,
sir?
with conditions, right.
Any discussion or questions before we call for a vote? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote at this time on 8D. Passes 4-0. Mr. Hotop, be great if y'all could reach out to P and Z and let them know our reasoning behind that those items were met in between their meeting and ours, just to keep that cohesiveness.
Take care of that.
Number 9 on the agenda, future agenda items. Mr. Hotop?
The one that I heard is just to try to do a recap, either through a work session or some other format for council and P and Z both, with just a recap of that Fort Worth Highway Visioning Study. And so we can either do that with a joint work session or independently, whatever is your preference.
Council, would y'all be okay with a brief recap at our retreat? And then for actually to have for council to have, for P and Z to have a work session? And if we want to individually attend that, we can do that. Is that okay with y'all for that strategy? Okay with you, sir?
We're good with that?
Great. Council, future agenda items, did that take care of that for you, Mr. Cleveland? Okay, great. Mayor Pro Tem?
If you would let us know when you're going to give that work session at P and Z, so we could just listen in.
Sure, certainly, great point. Anything else before we go to citizen comments? Item 10, citizen comments on non-agenda items. Anybody here like to speak this evening? Seeing none, item 11 on the agenda is adjournment. Mayor Pro Tem has made the motion to adjourn. Kevin Cleveland with a second. Any discussion before we call for a vote? Hearing none, we'll call for a vote this time on adjournment. Item 11. Indicate yea or nay, please.